Welcome back to the No Name Cinema Society, everybody. Holy cow, it's been forever. It is August the 2nd, 2016, and this is the 31st meeting of the No Name Cinema Society. If you remember from the last episode, I told you I was going to be in New York City, but that is not the case. I'm Jonathan Betzler, one of your hosts for tonight. As you can see, A, I'm still in Los Angeles, and B, I've got a little frog in my throat thing going on. And it's interesting, it has been a really long time because July 2016 is the first full calendar month that we've gone without having a No Name Cinema Society. And I did leave my glasses on after all. After I said, remind me to take my glasses off to my cohort. So 16 is the first time that the first calendar month that we have not had a show. And we were supposed to have a show last week, but I got booked on a horror feature, which not only had me canceling my trip to on one of my days off. It's a 15-day shoot, and we've done 4 of those 15 days already. And maybe we'll talk more about that in the sound because I bet you. New York City of all places. What are you doing there?
Is that, yeah, you cut out. I'm assuming you asked me. I'm just living the dream, man. Living the dream, hanging out, working hard.
And because he's in New York, that means he's buddy with our very own Spock, J Money in Brooklyn. How you doing, Spock?
I'm all right. I'm also a little sick, but it sounds like you're much sicker than I am. So, kudos to you, JB.
Well, I don't like to think. I don't. Everyone on set keeps. Well, I mean, like, it's a set thing. You know, first of all, I did back-to-back jobs, as you guys know. I had a short that led to another short and straight feature. I posted on Facebook, my personal page, that it's been one of the most challenging feature. I will be coming to New York, and then to Atlanta, and then to Portland. So it's going to be a very so anyway, welcome you guys. I'm glad that you guys we're here, as you know, we're here to talk about Star Trek Beyond. You guys got to see it together, the first time in forever, right?
Yeah, no, it's been years since we've
Money?
movie together.
Very cool. Well, I mean, I asked them if they took pictures, you know, of the event, and they did not. So, but they'll be able to talk about their mutual screening experience. It's not only Star Trek tonight, by the way. We've got a full calendar of events, starting with Star Trek Beyond, which we're about to discuss very shortly. Tyrannosaur, which I've been so busy, I just rewatched it. You know, less than an hour ago, I finished it. Coming up at 9 o'clock Eastern, 6 o'clock Pacific, we're going to open up a can of worms with Cleopatra. Yes, I made these guys watch a 4-hour movie. Coming up with the sound off, we got a new set, top 5, and we're going to. Yes, no, maybe so.
What's that, JB? Sorry, you cut out again there for a second.
I said, are you guys excited to get started?
Yeah, let's get it going.
Yeah, man.
Hot damn. Let's get into deep space.
All right, well, you guys. J Money, what are you drinking?
I got some Snapperhead IPA right here. Summer appropriate.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna cough on camera. I just want to let the audience know that this is the least prepared I think any of us have ever been. We've all been so busy, and it's been a month. And we're also getting back into the swing of things. So I've got a bottle of last job gave. Let's see if I can open it here.
I like that it's subtle.
There it is. I guess it's more interesting. Anyway.
Yeah, You gotta do the saber open.
What's that, big guy?
You gotta do the saber open. You know how to open a bottle like that with the saber?
I do not.
That's something we gotta work on for the next show. First
Yeah,
thing
definitely. I'll practice that for our next show.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, let's talk about Star Trek, y'all. The Starship Enterprise is in year 3 of their mission to go where no man has gone before. And in this film, they perhaps go too far. They get past the nebula and immediately get attacked by a new race that seems to have a particular hatred for the Federation. Marooned on a foreign planet, the crew has to solve the mystery in time to not only save themselves, but also an imminent attack on the Federation itself. All right, so that's the summary. How do you guys feel about that summary?
That was a good summary.
You nailed it.
Yep, totally.
Nailed it. Davy Joe, you get to go opening thoughts first. What?
I think this movie surpassed my expectations.
Okay. That's nice and vague. So I'm pleased with that. J Money.
I'm gonna say that this movie did not meet my expectations.
Interesting. So we're basing our opening thoughts around expectations. I guess I'll play along and I'll say I've never been as much of a Star Trek fan as I was a Star Wars fan. A and B, but I liked it. I never disliked Star Trek. I would say that I really disliked the two J.J. Abrams films in this new reboot. I intensely disliked Star Trek and Star Trek Into Darkness for reasons that I'll get into. I'm not going to say I like this film, but I will say I liked it better. So in terms of expectations, maybe that aligns me with Davy Joe just a little bit. Because I do think it's the best screenplay of the 3. So let's start there. And I don't want to suggest that it's a good screenplay, but all I'm saying is it's better. Overall, I feel like this franchise seems to rehash and recycle these stories, and everything that happens in all 3 of these reboots, I feel like I've seen in one way, shape, or form, and it's not fun to revisit. I also feel like the one good thing about this script is it relies less on contrivances than the first 2. There are still contrivances, but I feel like they're far less. So anyway, I have some more in the screenplay, but now that I've opened this up about the screenplay, where are you guys on the actual script and story?
Well, it's interesting because it seems like, we were making comparisons about the previous movies in our review, and you kind of are too, and we're coming at it from different ends perhaps, because I would say that I thought the screenplay was actually very weak, but I think that you're kind of saying it was weak as well, just better, the best of the 3 weak ones you've seen.
I'd say that's true. And I don't know. I brought a friend with me who liked the first 2 and disliked this one.
Okay.
And he also cited the screenplay as one of the reasons why. I think that he said one of the things that he didn't like about it is he said it felt to him like a long episode of the series. But that's actually one of the things that I liked about it. I liked that it wasn't like, because the first 2 like really tried to make it personal, like especially like I thought it was really lame in the first one how the first bad guy that Kirk encounters just happens to be the bad guy that killed his father. That's a sort of thing that makes my eyes roll. But in this case, there was none of that. It was just a regular old mission, which I kind of appreciated. I also thought the villain was better. The villain was good. I liked the villain. I don't want to call him better than Khan because Benedict Cumberbatch is a great actor, obviously, but the villain was better than I expected it to be, and certainly better than Eric Bana in that first one. Davy Joe?
It's funny. I actually haven't seen the second one, but I thought that Idris Elba did a great job as the villain. Also, that was something that I had in my notes here.
So you do take notes.
Occasionally, not usually. There's like 5 minutes before the show. and I tend to jot a few things down.
Oh, excellent. Okay, cool. What are the things that you did not like about the script, J Money? And I think your assessment is right. Like, I don't think it's a good script. I just think it's better.
Well, I guess, in counterpoint to what you're saying, I really noticed the episodic nature of how the script felt, and that bothered me. You know, and coming from it a few days after seeing it now, I guess I wonder how much of that was intentional. If they were really intentionally trying to reference the idea of it being an episode, or if it just felt episodic because it didn't feel, I don't know, grandiose in scale and also a really cheesy to me personally. And I don't, I guess I don't know if I should discount that or not, because in some ways, if it was truly intentional and they were truly trying to really take on the aspects of the original series, like, TV show, I can respect that, as much as I didn't necessarily enjoy the actual execution of it. But I would say, like, I honestly thought Idris Elba was a wasted use of talent in this movie. I thought he was a terrible character. I thought there were a lot of really pointless sort of contrivances in this, in the same way that the first two had pointless contrivances as well, but in this one it just seemed much more obvious and cheesy to me. And that's kind of where I stand on this. I just felt like everything felt a lot more obvious. To your point, JB, it's the same movie again, and they're hitting it in the head for the third time, so now it's just like, again with this stuff.
Yeah, no, I think what I liked about it, I liked that it was just that they were getting on with their mission. I liked that it wasn't this extra special thing. I liked that it was just another mission, and it's not like the stakes weren't high. You know what I mean? Like, I did feel like he was a villain to be reckoned with. It did seem like things were dire at a certain time, but then again, things seem dire a lot for these guys. You know what I mean? So I didn't. Again, it's like it's a marginally better, I would say. I don't want to say too many good things. One thing that came up in our conversation last night with because I just saw it last night because I had another day off, but we talked about how the dialogue was less snappy than it usually is. Did either guys feel that?
Yeah, absolutely. I noticed that. It felt really dull to me, and it felt like they didn't really bother actually trying to make real coherent sort of dialogue between the characters. It was a lot of just like quick exposition, and then they moved on immediately, and it didn't really feel like anything kind of connected.
And since Simon Pegg wrote the screenplay, I was hoping for a little more cleverness, and I didn't feel like I got it. Davy Joe, where are you in the dialogue?
I think that the dialogue was fine, except the thing with this movie is that all the actors are kind of doing these kind of impersonations almost, and they're trying to honor the original cast, which is I think some people love it, but it also I think it kind of takes you out of it, and it kind of keeps you from really getting engaged in the dialogue. So I
let's put a pin in that for a second about the performances, because I do feel like there's a difference in the performances of this movie and the previous two, and I want to get to that. But sticking with this screenplay idea, also there was this element of luck, and again, this is another thing that's been bothering me about these most recent iteration of Star Trek movies, is the role of luck that plays in their conquest. Like, they tend to, and they don't establish things in advance. Too many things like, oh, well, if we do this sound thing, it will do this thing. You know what I mean? Like, that sort of there's a Deus ex machina quality to a lot of how they get out of their scrapes, and that feels empty and hollow to me. Looks like J Money agrees. David Joe?
No, I think you're right, and I think that it seems like the stars aligned maybe one too many times. No pun intended.
I also feel like they were trying to shoehorn these new characters into the thing, and they just weren't that interesting. As far as I like the villain. These new characters on the good side, they didn't really have much going on, or and their exposition was forced, and I've got a picture of Jayla up here for those of you who are listening to our podcast on iTunes. So I mean, like, I don't know. I mean, I didn't like any of the new characters, and the old ones seemed, to be sleepwalking through it.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of the characters were very much just, well, especially the newer characters you're talking about, the villain and Jayla in this situation, really kind of there to fill out a need to advance the plot, but they weren't necessarily characters in and of themselves. They were very, very broad stroked and very kind of, they just felt like filler ultimately, as they were trying to figure
Now,
out how.
are we giving the old Star Treks a pass, because of their age and their popularity? Like, or am I remembering it wrong, or did they seem more interesting to me? And
Well, are we talking about the movies or are we talking about the shows?
both. I was kind of lumping them. Let's say the Kirk iteration. I mean, the Shatner Nimoy iteration.
I mean, there's obviously a lot of debate about the Star Trek movies, the original Star Trek movies in general, which were notoriously both great and terrible, depending on who you ask. I don't have a strong affinity for Star Trek in general. I guess like you, JB, I grew up in the Star Wars universe, not a Star Trek one, so I don't necessarily feel the same connection to them. I certainly enjoy like Wrath of Khan. I certainly enjoy like a couple of those.
Which, by the way, is playing at Bryant Park, and hopefully I'll be there. And you and I can maybe go together to see Star Trek II Bryant Park on August 22nd, I think it is.
Yeah, I'll have to check on that one. But yeah, exactly. I mean, there are certain classics that I think everybody kind of takes as canon that's worthwhile. But I certainly remember there being terrible Star Trek movies. So in a sense, yeah, this kind of fits into the whole collection.
Yeah, but I mean, like the latter sequels were bad. I mean, like the first one, Wrath of Khan, were good. Voyage Home was pretty good. You could say the same thing about Rocky movies. Rocky 1 and 2 were good. 3 was terrible. 4 was better. You know what I mean? Like, there's still like a love of the franchise overall, even in spite of that. Like here, I don't know that I don't like any of them that much.
Yeah, I think it's really appealing to an entirely different kind of fan. I mean, there was obviously a lot of uproar about how Abrams handled rebooting the universe in general, and I totally understand why. If I was a Star Trek fan, I'd be pretty upset about the way that it was handled.
Just sort of resetting the timeline.
Resetting the timeline, and also just his approach to the content, which is much more about action. It's not really about thinking through. Star Trek the series had a lot more theology and philosophy behind it. This is really just about explosions. I mean, it's a lot of reasons.
I was just going to get to that. There was in all three, and particularly this one, I felt like there was a notorious lack of depth. I mean, like maybe they were trying to shoehorn this concept of the importance of unity, and maybe in our divided country they were trying to suggest that Democrats and Republicans should get together. I might be stretching things a little bit, but and maybe that's what Bones and Spock represent, perhaps Democrats and Republicans. This is how much I'm trying to stretch to get at some deeper meaning of the plot of this movie. But am I missing something, or was this movie sort of shallow?
I mean, I certainly feel that way, especially in terms of that overall theme of unity. I mean, it's a pretty ridiculous sort of like last-minute parade float kind of theme. Anyone can slap together something about unity. It's the kind of thing you see on a motivational poster. This is certainly a theme that plays in the director's work. I don't know why I just blanked on his name. You know who I'm talking about?
J.J. Abrams or Justin
Lin? Not who?
Justin Lin?
Right?
Justin, yeah, exactly. I mean, this is a theme that you see a lot, for instance, in the Fast and the Furious movies. And in fact, there were a lot of stunts I recognized in this movie that I think I've seen in the Fast and the Furious movies as well. But it just seemed like a pretty, shallow, sort of like skin-level idea of a theme. There really wasn't enough there. Unity is such a really broad, basic concept. Like, I don't know if there's really enough to base an entire movie on.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. Do you guys have anything else on Screenplay before I have like a minute left to talk about direction?
David Joe?
I was just gonna say that these are definitely it's more action than sci-fi, which is not how the originals were.
And that's a really great point. Possibly the best you've ever made on the show. Anyway, I want to talk about Justin Lin's direction a little bit because I mean, like, I noticed a lot of differences. One of which is a complete move away from the use of anamorphic lenses. Do you guys know a lot about anamorphic lenses?
I mean, I noticed a lack of flares, if that's what you're talking about.
Well, you know this because I sent you this photo.
I also noticed that while watching the movie because I remember how people talk.
Okay, good, yeah. I mean, like, and that it's the anamorphic lenses that creates the flares, and this is a still from Into Darkness, and you can see very vividly the flares as our timer goes off. And that I would almost argue that J.J. Abrams used it too much in the first two films, but in this film, they went away from it completely.
Yeah.
And here's an example. And I'm wondering, how do you guys feel about that? Like this one director sets like a visual language for the series, and this other director abandons it. Is that the right move? Is that okay? What do you guys think?
I do think it's okay. I think that each movie can have its own feel, and he can put his own spin on the aesthetic of the film. It doesn't bother me.
But aren't they supposed to connect together as a franchise?
Well, I think thematically and in sort of from a chronological and storyline point of view, sure. But I think that the look and feel of the film, I think the director has a certain amount of leeway there.
J-Money?
It's interesting. It doesn't bother me that these two different directors are handling it differently, because I think they're both handling this in the way that they handle their other movies. Abrams became known for that flare-up, and it became a joke in a lot of ways for a lot of people, so I think it's okay that it left with him. But at the same time, I was talking earlier how this movie felt very episodic to me. I think that might be part of it. I think in some ways this lacked some of the other larger filmic elements I expected from seeing the previous Star Treks. Whoops. And that's maybe why it felt a little bit more in line with some of the TV series stuff.
Don't insult Star Wars like that, man.
I say.
The other thing is the action scenes. Now, I jumped ship on the Fast and the Furious franchise after the second one, so and I'm not going back.
You gotta go back. They get much better.
No, I'm not going to do it. But I will say that the action scenes were pretty terrible to me in terms of direction. And from a Michael Bay school of chaos and confusion, as opposed to, I really feel like he needed to do a better job of geography and off-screen space, where things are in relation to one another. And I just felt like it was just pandemonium in the edit, and that makes it seem like pandemonium and explosions. That makes it seem cooler somehow.
I didn't have a problem with the scene you're showing right now, where the Enterprise itself gets attacked. I had a problem with every other action sequence that you're talking about that's in the movie. So I get what you're talking about, definitely.
David Joe, you're the expert. What do you think?
I thought it was good, and I enjoyed the. It's not the action sequences that I had a problem with. It's just that the fact that they're kind of ahead of everything else in the film. I thought that all the especially the one that you're showing on the screen right now, I thought that was great. I enjoyed it quite a bit. But it's not supposed to be. It's not supposed to be just about action. At least that's my kind of.
No, I agree. The one scene that I liked is the end space battle, which was spurred by the classical music. Even though I thought that was kind of a forced, cheesy choice, it did have some energy to it that I enjoyed, and they did have a nice wide shot that was able to show us where things were in relation to each other. They needed more of that sort of thing. The other thing before we hang up is about direction that I wanted to talk about is the noticeable dip in performances. I think in relation to the other two films, except with the exception of Idris Elba here in heavy makeup. I thought the performances were pretty terrible and very flat all around. I've never really liked Zachary Quinto, but I've liked Carl Urban as Bones before, and he seems sort of like one note, and Simon Pegg too. I don't know if he just focuses on writing, but they all seem to be phoning it in to some degree. Am I off here?
To me, it felt like everybody was just saying their catchphrases over and over again. It felt really flat to me.
Yeah, Davey?
No, I touched on it earlier. They're all sort of impersonating the original cast, and I think that for some people that's going to be great, and they're gonna enjoy that. But I don't know. It's almost distracting to me.
Yeah, I will say that in episode 21.1, one thing that we gave I didn't like Star Wars that much, The Force Awakens, but one thing that I did give J.J. Abrams credit for is the performances in The Force Awakens were far better than anything you might see in something directed by George Lucas himself. I think we all agreed with with that comment. And I think, this is further proof that J.J. Abrams, was able to, work with these actors and give them a little more to work with, where I feel like Justin Lin is not providing that, or at least that's what the result says to me. I mean, to me, there is a complete drop off a mountain in terms of these performances as a whole. I mean, Zoe Saldana, poor Anton Chekhov, not Anton Chekhov, Anton Yelchin, and John Cho. I mean, these I felt like they were not getting much because it's all surface and not very interesting to watch.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, exactly. I guess I don't know if that's because, partly it's because of the script. Certainly, probably the script didn't really give them a lot to work with itself. Partly it's because everyone was so broken apart, and you had a few minutes here and there to kind of help everybody build their, the group together.
In a contrived way, broken apart in a contrived way, you could argue.
Contrived way, certainly, which again felt very episodic. Felt very much like it was in line with certain TV stuff. And then, Justin Lin does not. I don't think he focuses on people. I think he focuses on stuff, just in general. So,
Family.
Why wasn't there a mashup? There should be a Fast and Furious Star Trek mashup somewhere at this point.
Anyway, all right, so we got to wrap it up if we're going to make our indie spotlight in time. Our next current feature, provided I don't die in the next 2 weeks, is going to be Florence Foster Jenkins, the new Meryl Streep Hugh Grant joint, directed by Stephen Frears. And we're going to be talking about that. I think it's a Thursday, August 18th. I wrapped this feature on Sunday, August 14th, fly to New York on Tuesday, August 16th, and then I should be able to broadcast with you guys on the 18th. In the meantime, so that's in I guess 16 days. But in the meantime, we got our indie spotlight coming up next, and that is Tyrannosaur, directed by Patty Considine. We'll talk about that momentarily in 3 to 5 minutes, let's say. All right, guys, we'll hit you back up.